Hey everybody, just wanted you to know that this video is sponsored by REI. REI is a premium sponsor of Backpacking Light, and occasionally for our premium sponsors, we will do promotional videos like this to give our sponsors some awareness and recognition, and to say thanks for their support of Backpacking Light and our community. In 2019, we have taken on a limited number of invited sponsors to help support the Backpacking Light community in an effort to completely get rid of network advertising. Network ads are those ads that are annoying, irrelevant, and track your behavior, and we're going away from that completely for our community and bringing you brands that are relevant to hiking and backpacking. At any rate, I just wanted to say thank you to REI, and thank you for our community for being patient with us as we try new ways to increase our long-term sustainability and eliminate ads that really don't mean anything to you. Our 2019 sponsors have to meet strict value requirements or we won't accept them into our program. In short, they have to support human-powered travel and promote public lands conservation. To that extent, I think REI is a great fit, and I just wanted to say thank you to those people at REI who are supporting our community and keeping Backpacking Light moving on into the future. My earliest memory with REI was I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and maybe younger, and I was in Cub Scouts or starting Boy Scouts or something, and my parents took me down to the original REI store, which was on Capitol Hill in downtown Seattle. And it was this huge campus, like just sprawling, took over an entire city block, and I remember it being like a couple stories and different wings with different sections of gear, unlike today's big box stores, which are just kind of square. It had a lot of character. And we went down to start getting me outfitted for hiking and camping with the Scouts. So my very first piece of gear was probably like rag wool socks, you know, something really simple, but something super essential that Scouts need, because we tended to get wet feet pretty easy in the Seattle area. The first gear that I purchased myself was a rain jacket, a backpack, and an ice axe. And I had saved up from working at a summer camp, and I think I probably spent my entire summer's earnings on those 3 items. And the rain jacket was this terrific purple Gore-Tex. I think it was called the Switchback anorak, and it was a pullover. I chose it because it was the lightest jacket that they sold at the time that was still waterproof and seam sealed. It was 2-layer Gore-Tex. It had a mesh liner, you know, totally old school. But I wore that jacket through some horrific storms in the Cascades and Olympics. The backpack I nicknamed the Banana. It was this 70 or 80 liter internal frame pack. It was my first internal frame backpack, and it weighed about 7.5 pounds. And I remember talking to somebody at the Mountaineers, and he had taken a razor blade and a pair of scissors and had hacked up a pack to save a bunch of weight, and kind of showed me the process of how to do it and without ruining my pack. And so I remember cutting out the zippered sleeping bag divider, compartment divider. I replaced a bunch of straps with little cordage, kind of like the cordage you see on today's ultralight packs. And I didn't always take the lid, so I had to, it had a fixed lid on it, so I had to sew and rig it so that the lid was removable but still replaceable when I needed it. I sewed my own external pockets for it out of some really light fabric that I found. And that pack was the first pack that I started guiding with in 1989, I guess it was, my first guided trips in the Olympic Mountains and Olympic National Park. But my favorite piece of gear that I purchased on that initial shopping spree was the Rei Ice Axe. It had a 70 centimeter fiberglass shaft, a steel pick, head, and spike, and it weighed like 28 ounces. But you know, it was your first ice axe. It was kind of a big deal. That axe went with me on every climb in the Olympics that I took between 1989 and 1991. And during those 3 years, I climbed all of the Olympics 5,000 plus foot peaks, including Mount Olympus and Anderson and Deception, the 3 kind of big ones of the Olympics. And I also climbed a bunch of peaks in the Cascades, you know, all the volcanoes, Baker and Rainier and Mount Adams and Hood and the Sisters. And I guess that axe has some stories to tell for sure. I'm not sure where it is today. I ended up selling it because I wanted a lighter one. That pack and rain jacket went with me on when Stephanie and I went on our first 2 backpacking trips in the Olympics, a week-long trip in the Enchanted Valley, and I remember it rained the entire trip almost, and we got pretty hypothermic, and it was pretty crazy trip. And I remember specifically having that jacket and thinking, I'm glad I had something that was completely waterproof, because what we used to have was kind of non-breathable. I think they were the old Sierra Designs nylon jackets, and they were absolute misery. And so that first Gore-Tex jacket was actually kind of a treat, just to have something that had breathable fabric. The second trip Stephanie and I took was on the ocean of the Olympic coast, and so we spent 4 days hiking there, and again, you know, got hammered with rain, but we had some pretty good weather too. So yeah, this gear gave me some pretty good memories. But I always thought that should be the purpose of gear, is to help you tell stories and make memories. And for me, it was never about the gear. It still isn't, although, you know, being kind of having an engineering background and design background, I love studying and analyzing and testing gear. But being out here and actually doing the stuff is far more important to me, and so the gear is a tool that allows me to do that. I've been an REI member since the late 1980s, maybe the mid 1980s, and for me, growing up in Seattle, it was really kind of special because the company wasn't quite as big as it is today, and the community surrounding REI in Seattle at the time was really incredible. As a Boy Scout, we got to be on kind of a first name basis with a lot of the staff down there, and I remember them being incredibly helpful, and I remember really looking up to them because they spent time with me and helped me get outfitted, and I learned a lot of skills at the clinics down there and things like that, and that really motivated me to want to give back to the REI community once I started backpacking light, because it gave me a chance to, you know, teach clinics at REI and provide education for other people, and that, to me, that was really cool. And we started teaching clinics in, well, what was it, 1998, I think I taught my first one. And since that time, I've taught countless clinics at REIs all over the country, and it's one of my favorite things to do because the community that comes to seek education and those people who want to improve their outdoor skills or learn about the environment or get trained on how to do everything from, you know, avalanche rescue or navigation or anything like that. It's a cool community of people who are really giving, and I've always appreciated that. REI has a gear and apparel division where they produce gear under their own brand name. Most retailers that do this don't actually design the gear. They outsource it to a third-party design service and have them produced. So usually they take existing off-the-shelf brands and then have the manufacturer put their own brand name on it. REI doesn't do that. They have their own gear and apparel division, their own design team. And about 10 or 12 years ago, REI Gear and Apparel purchased memberships from Backpacking Light so they could start learning about ultralight backpacking and its ideology, its philosophy, its skills, and of course about the gear. And they wanted to connect to our community, which is really cool having their team engage with our people. The great thing that came out of that was they started developing gear that was lighter weight and more in tune with the kind of gear that thru hikers and long distance hikers and ultralight backpackers want to take along. So fast forward to today, and REI has been able to create some really fantastic designs, and in 2019 alone we have some really interesting gear coming from REI. For the first time, they are releasing a down quilt, the Magma 30 quilt. They have, of course, their Flash series of sleeping bags, backpacks, sleeping pads, and those have been in their line for several years. They continue to make refinements. Today I'm using, I think it's the Flash 55. I have about 25 pounds in it, carries exceptionally well, better than any of the Flash models I've used in the past. And this 2019 pack seems to have more intentional features for lightweight backpackers than any previous model. So there's modular straps that you can use to create your own customized attachment systems. The top lid is removable. The fabrics are very light and very strong. It's well made. The harness and suspension system are light and very comfortable, and it's got a ton of pockets and opportunities to organize your gear so that you can access things efficiently when you're on the trail. And that is probably the hallmark of the signature lightweight backpack, is kind of this back pocket, multiple side pockets model that we are seeing now in a variety of lightweight packs from various manufacturers. One thing that strikes me about the Flash pack is the fabrics and the materials used in the foams and things like that are very high quality, and so you end up with a pack that has materials that are very strong, very comfortable, and still lightweight. This pack comes in at under 2 pounds, and it easily carries 25-30 pounds in comfort. So take a look at the Flash 55 for 2019 and see what you think. We're going to do a review on it at a later time, so keep an eye out for that. We recently reviewed the Rei Flash trekking poles in our lightweight trekking poles review, and they were some of the highest ranked poles in our review. So the idea that these larger manufacturers and larger retailers who create their own brand of gear are not able to compete with the smaller boutique manufacturers, those days are kind of going away. You know, the cottage companies are still the leaders in innovation. Do not get me wrong on that. They are still the leaders in customization. You cannot go to Rei and ask them to customize a product for you. But the advantage of some of this gear that companies like Rei are providing now is that they're much higher quality than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. In addition, they are using state-of-the-art materials and manufacturing techniques, and so you end up with products that off the shelf are incredibly good quality for a very good value. And that, of course, is the hopeful selling point of a company that's able to bring manufacturing scale to the table, that they can deliver goods to the consumer for a lower price, which is always a good thing. Some of my favorite things about buying gear at Rei, they have an unconditional return policy, no questions asked. I've never had an issue with a return on a piece of gear. So my latest return experience with Rei, Stephanie has a pair of Smith photochromic sunglasses. These things are not cheap sunglasses, and one of the nose pieces fell off. And they're over a year old. We bought it more than a year ago. So I took it back to Rei and said, hey, what are our options here? And they swapped it out right on the spot for a brand new pair. And man, that kind of customer support, I don't know that I've ever had that from a retailer. Most retailers I've worked with in the past have, you know, given me the number to the manufacturer and said, hey, go deal with their warranty department. And I understand that, and I have done that, but it's so nice to be able to just have a company take care of you from start to finish. It's really nice. So today I am making a noodle dish. It's a cup of noodles thing. It's Mike's Mighty Good Craft Ramen. It has organic noodles. It's a vegetarian ramen soup. And then I'm adding some vegetables to it. I cut up a red potato, a mushroom, a jalapeno pepper, and a couple of Brussels sprouts. So that's my dinner for tonight. I'm cooking it on probably what is one of my favorite ways to cook in the backcountry, and that's with a small canister stove and my titanium pot. I'm using today the Msr Pocket Rocket Deluxe because we're in the middle of this gigantic canister stove review and gear guide, and the Pocket Rocket Deluxe is what's on my plate today. The pot I'm using is the Msr Titan Kettle. I've used this pot for a number of years, and I talk about this cook kit in a YouTube video, and I'll link that below as well. My coffee, I made a cup of coffee for dinner. It's Kuju, K-A-U-J-U, I think that's how you pronounce it. Medium roast base camp blend with tones of oak and chocolate and honey. So you saw me set up the little tent. That's the Rei Quarter Dome SL1. That's new for 2019 as well. The Quarter Dome series has been in Rei's line for several years now. The SL1 is new for 2019 because it's much lighter now. They saved several ounces last year. It is a double wall, single person tent with one side entry and one vestibule. It's less than 2 pounds, and it comes with external guy lines, a few stakeout points, and the stability is really quite impressive. And so I'm excited to get that in the field for Backpacking Light so that we can get a review out on that. I find this style of tent with a side entry and side vestibule much more comfortable and much more functional than the typical one-end entrance tents that have the vestibule and the entrance at the head end. They tend to be just kind of less comfortable and harder to deal with when you're getting in and out of a tent. A little bit about what I'm wearing today. Temperatures are in the 20s and 30s out here right now, and so it's a little bit chilly. It's probably 35 to 38 degrees right now, and I'm wearing long underwear underneath some Prana soft shell pants. Pranas are my winter pant of choice. The Rei Screen line is my summer pant of choice. I used to use some pants from Patagonia, the Quandary, I believe they were called. I moved to something a little more durable, and so I chose the Rei Screen line a couple of years ago. And I've used the same pair of pants now for probably, oh gosh, at least a dozen guided treks and all of my personal trips in 3-season conditions. And I really think the knee and seat reinforcements are critical for my style of backpacking, which involves a lot of bushwhacking and scrambling and things like that. And they would be fine in the winter here over Long Johns, but I like the soft shell for winter travel. On my feet I have a pair of Smart Wool ski socks, and then a pair of Rocky Gore-Tex socks, and then the Ultra waterproof mids, the Lone Peak mids. And then I'm using Northern Lights snowshoes today. Up top I have a Smart Wool t-shirt underneath the Patagonia Nano Air hoodie, and then an Arc'teryx Zeta SL jacket. There's a review at Backpacking Light about this jacket. I've used it for several weeks since that review is out, and I'm loving it. It is my new favorite rain jacket. So everything I said positive in that review about that jacket has been magnified. I found nothing negative about this coat and think it's one of the most breathable pieces of rain gear I've ever used. And then for when it gets really chilly, I brought along my favorite synthetic insulated jacket, which is the Patagonia Micro Puff jacket. My sleep system tonight is the new Cascade Designs Thermarest Neo Air Uberlite inflatable sleeping pad. The Uberlite is the lightest full-length inflatable sleeping pad on the market. Just a shade over 8, actually mine is 7.9 ounces. That's on a certified scale. And then I'm using the Magma quilt. And Sierra's going to sleep on the Z-Rest pad. Okay, that about wraps it up. I'm gonna eat my dinner and say goodnight. And again, I just want to say thanks to REI for your support of Backpacking Light, and thank you guys for supporting Backpacking Light and supporting REI. Check out REI's new 2019 line of tents, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, backpacks, and trekking poles. Oh, and camp chairs. They have a new camp chair too that's very light. It's the Flash. Doug Johnson is reviewing that, and he's doing that in a chair gear guide that's coming up this spring. He really likes the REI Flash chair. Hey, you're bumping the camera. He really get over here. There's my dish. Looks pretty good. Should be pretty nutritious. Now I will say this, I buy dehydrated food. I usually buy it at REI. I buy a lot of stuff at REI. I think I'm addicted to the dividend, because REI gives you 10% cash back at the end of every year on your purchases. Oh, only for members though. So if you are not an REI member, consider joining the co-op. It's a co-op. You get a lot of benefits. Members only sales, members only gear coupons. I think it's worth it. It's a one-time gig. You're a member for life, and you get to own a part of a corporation that you can participate in its governance by participating in board of directors elections and things like that. The other thing I really like about being a member is that it affiliates me with a company that does a lot of good. REI is a huge promoter of human-powered travel, of public lands conservation. They support a lot of trail maintenance efforts, education clinics, and they're a very strong voice for us in the outdoor industry, which I really appreciate. So if you're not an REI member, consider joining today. It's money well spent. Finally, one last disclosure. Backpacking Light is an REI affiliate. That means any link to the REI website that you see on the backpackinglight.com website, if you click on that, visit REI, and subsequently make a purchase, we get a kickback. A small percentage of that, oh, jalapenos. We get a small commission on that sale. Our affiliate revenues allow us to pay writers and gear reviewers. It allows us to start new programs. Hey, you're bumping my camera. They allow us to support new programs like the podcast and the web. They allow us to support new programs like the podcast, the webinar series, the film festival, all those extra things that we can't necessarily fund for the public out of our membership revenues alone. So thank you for supporting Backpacking Light in that way. All right, now I'm going to eat my dinner. It's really good. I think Sierra's probably hungry. Come over here. Come over here. Come over here. Right here. Come here. Right here. Okay, Sierra and I say happy trails from Backpacking Light. Thank you for watching. Sit. Okay, everybody. Happy trails from Backpacking Light. You want to eat? You want to eat dinner? You're probably starving to death, aren't you? Okay, let's go.